The last learning target that we're going to hit today is I can solve multi-step equations using the distributive property and combining like terms. So we've worked on both distributive property alone and combining terms alone. Now we're going to do both of them together. And this is really similar to simplifying expressions without the equal sign. We've got to simplify the expression first, and then we can solve for our variable. So in order to do that, we always use the distributive property first, and then we combine like terms. After that, we can simplify both sides of the equation and check our solution at the end. So the first thing I'm going to do here on this first example is use the distributive property. I'm going to copy g plus 3 times g is 3g. Bring down my plus sign. 3 times 4 is 12 equals 20. Now, we need to combine like terms. In front of my g, I can put a 1. Because 1 times g is still g, it doesn't change the value. My like terms now are 1g plus 3g. And 1g plus 3g is 4g plus 12 equals 20. I'm trying to isolate my term with the variable here, so I've got 4g plus 12 equals 20. I'm going to do the inverse of add 12, which is subtract 12 from both sides. I bring down my 4g, and 20 minus 12 is 8. Now the inverse of multiplying by 4 is dividing by 4, so I'm going to divide both sides by 4 to get my g by itself. 4 divided by 4 is 1, so I get g equals 8 divided by 4 is 2. Now if I want to check my work, remember that we always do parentheses first, so I'm going to start here. 2 plus 4 is 6. 6 times 3 is 18, plus another g, which is 2. 18 plus 2 is 20. So g equals 2 is the correct answer. It checks. On the next example, I'm going to start using the distributive property, then combine like terms, then simplify, and then check. So 6 times a and 6 times 1, I've got 8 plus 6a. Bring down the minus sign. Be careful that it's not a plus. It's a minus sign in this distributive property, so we've got to bring down the minus. And 6 times 1 is 6. That's equal to 32. Now, to combine like terms, my like terms this time are constants. 8 minus 6. So 8 minus 6 is 2 plus 6a equals 32. If I'm going to isolate the term with a variable, I'm going to isolate 6a. I've got to do the inverse of add 2. And the inverse of adding 2 is subtracting 2 from both sides. So 2 minus 2 is 0. Pull down my 6a. 6a equals 30. The inverse of multiplying by 6 is dividing by 6. So I divide by 6 and get a equals 30 divided by 6 is 5. A equals 5. Let's check our work to make sure it makes sense. If I come back up here, 5 minus 1 is 4. 4 times 6 is 24. 24 plus 8 is 32, so a equals 5 checks and makes sense that it's my answer. On this last problem, I really want you to pause and try it yourself, then check your work at the end. Hopefully you've tried this problem and now you're just following along with your work in mind to make sure that we did the same things. I'm going to use distributive property first, so I'm going to distribute my 2. 2 times 3t is 6t. Bring down my minus sign. 2 times 8 is 16. Minus 4t equals 10. Now I'm looking for like terms. I've got 6t minus 4t. 6t minus 4t is 2t. I'm going to just keep minus 16 equals 10. Now I'm trying to isolate my term with the variable. So I'm going to do the opposite of minus 16. I'm going to add 16 to both sides. Negative 16 and positive 16 cancel out. And 2t equals 26. The inverse of multiplying t by 2 is dividing by 2. If I do it to one side of the equal sign, I have to do it to the other. So 2 divided by 2 is 1t that I'm left with here. And 26 divided by 2 is 13. So I've got an answer of t equals 13. Now let's check and make sure it makes sense. 3 times 13 is 39. 39 minus 8 is 31. 31 times 2 is 62. I'm just going to write that for myself right here. Minus, and then 4 times 13, I'm going to have to think about that, is 52. And we want to know, is 62 minus 52 equal to 10? Yeah, it is. So my answer checks. It makes sense. And I'm good that t is equal to 13.